through, I've endured a lot of really, really unhinged, crazy behavior from people, from really scary stalking to protesting and having events. Go out of my way to be controversial, which is interesting because, you know, I get referred to a lot as like a provocateur or like a controversial political figure. And I'm like, the only thing that's really controversial about me is that I walked away from the Democratic Party and I was really vocal about it, and I encouraged other people to do the same thing. But other than that, because we all know right-wing celebrities and influencers who are huge, who are. I think they would pride themselves on being controversial and provocative and, you know, kind of pissing people off. But I don't really go out of my way to do that. So I would ask my friends, why do they come at me so hard? Like, why am I getting this level of resistance that people bigger than me and people who, you know, frankly, kind of bring that kind of energy on themselves out there and being a nice person and actually trying to reach across the aisle? You're not presenting yourself. Like, the left is happy to glorify and not deplatform conservatives who kind of act like jerks, because that's what they want people to believe that we all are. They want people to think that we're not likable and we're not good people. But if you're actually a likable, nice person who goes out there and tries to like do something decent for the world, and you happen to support Trump or be a conservative, they hate you so much because you don't fit the narrative of what they want people to believe about the right. They want people to think that the right is a bunch of crazy, provocative, mean-spirited people, and I'm not none of those things, which actually makes them hate me more than anything. So it sort of doesn't surprise me that much. Not to say that, you know, Don Jr. and everything, but like, it doesn't surprise me so much that I get a lot of this kind of attention. Did any of you guys see the protesters at Finley the other night that I posted on my Facebook page or on social media? That was fun too. But you know, I look at these protesters over here. There's not that many, and read their piece. These are like the BLM people, by the way. These are like the defund the police people. But because of January, on one day in their entire lives, they cared about police officers, which was January. These are people who I think didn't get my message that I've been trying to put out for the last 7 years, which is that you've got to think for yourself. You've got to do your own homework. You've got to do your own research. You've got to unplug from the mainstream media that you think to the way that you vote, and then you end up doing shit like this. Where you go out. So I actually feel kind of bad for these people. All right, well, all of that being said, let's get into it. My name is Brandon Straka. I am the founder and creator of the #WalkAway campaign. We are the largest national movement of former Democrats walking away from the Democratic Party. So how did this happen? How did it happen? Well, so I grew up in a small town in rural Nebraska, very conservative family. I wasn't like anyone else in my family or my town. I was born into liberalism, or at least I felt like I was. Grew up believing pretty much all of the narratives from Hollywood celebrities, the music industry, you know, entertainment, culture, that were teaching me that the Republican Party is the party of greedy, self-interested. Party was trying to, you know, oppress and destroy their lives, and I bought into this narrative entirely. You know, I'm a gay man who realized early on in my life that I was gay, and so I didn't feel like I fit in my conservative town, and that's why I think I fell prey to the message of the Democrats and the liberal media. And when I grew up, I graduated from high school, knew I wanted to live an artist's life. I moved to New York City because I wanted to be an actor and a singer and a performer. And I did that a little bit for several years. Nothing, you know, I was kind of like off Broadway and some small TV stuff. Nothing impressive at all. But, you know, the point is that I fell in with a very, very liberal bubble, and I lived in my liberal bubble in my entire adult life. And so it really never occurred to me, even though I grew up in rural Nebraska, it never occurred to me to really question the narratives of what I believed about liberalism and what I believed about conservatism until 2016. I was a two-time Barack Obama voter at this point. Usually people boo. Are you guys too cold? You're too cold. I build in time in my speech for the booing and before I move forward. I think you guys are just cold. So I voted for Obama twice, and then I was so excited to vote for Hillary Clinton. All right, now we're warming up. Because because, as the media told me, this was an extension of Barack Obama's 8 scandal-free years, and the continuation of Barack Obama's legacy, which that part would have been true. And I believe, the media said she was the most prepared candidate in history. It was our time to elect a woman president, and so I could not wait to vote for Hillary Clinton. And that's exactly what I did in 2016, November of 2016. Now, when Donald Trump announced that he was running for president, like most people, including I think people who later became his voters and supporters, I'm talking about when he first announced, I think a lot of people thought it was a joke. Like, oh, the guy from The Apprentice, this big media mogul and media star is going to run for president, okay. And then he kind of went out on the road and he started talking about all of these issues that other people weren't talking about and saying all of these things, and suddenly he started gaining steam and gaining momentum, and it became very clear that this MAGA movement was growing and becoming a real and legitimate threat, and that all of a sudden it wasn't so funny anymore. And I think the media even started to go, hold on a second, maybe Hillary Clinton doesn't have this all sewn up the way we're planning on her having it. What are we going to do about this? And so I believe that the media did what they always do. They asked themselves, well, what triggers our base more than anything? Social injustice. We have to make Donald Trump into the most racist, bigoted, homophobic, hateful man who's ever run for president, the second coming of Hitler. And that's exactly what they did. They started going to his rallies, his events, isolating these little moments that they could spin out of context and creating these narratives that he hates Mexicans and he hates women and he hates gay people and he hates black people and immigrants. He hates everybody. And I kind of just, like these guys, gave my brain over to the media and just allowed myself to believe everything that I was being told. And I distinctly remember one day in 2015, 2016, being on the treadmill at the gym. They don't show Fox News at the gym. It's just CNN at the airports or anywhere else. So I'm on the treadmill watching CNN, and I distinctly remember the moment when they said, Donald Trump mocks disabled reporter. And I thought it was the most sickening and disturbing thing I had ever seen. And I said to myself, okay, surely this is going to be the end of it. Surely this is going to be the thing that strikes a blow into the heart of this campaign and ends this stupid MAGA thing that's sweeping the nation. But it didn't. And people continue to support him, and it continued to grow. And I was going, well, what the hell is going on? And what is wrong? I knew conservatives were bad, but I was like, how bad are you guys? My God, is there no limit to your evil? And but the media also kept saying, he's horrible, but he has a 3% chance of winning, and she's going to win in a landslide. So I was holding on to that. And so election night 2016 comes around, and lo and behold, Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States. And she said, best day ever. And I had a little bit of a nervy breaky. I mean, more than just a little bit of a nervy breaky. I actually called out to work for several days, telling them I couldn't come in. And I spent the next several days on Facebook Live crying and making videos, talking about how damaged and destroyed and devastated I was. And the truth is I was. I mean, I was scared. I was angry. I was confused. I was outraged. And I kept thinking, well, this is really bad. Because they kept saying, the media kept saying, this man stands for taking people's rights away. He wants to do harm to all these different minority communities, racial minorities, LGBT people, immigrants. And this is really, really bad. I absolutely believed all of it. And so I went for the next several months kind of rage posting on social media. And in January of 2017, I posted on Facebook that I would never be able to understand how anyone could vote for a man who was capable of mocking a reporter's disability in front of a cheering crowd. And that is when a staunch Christian conservative named Diane, who was my babysitter when I was a baby, and I had had many fights with her throughout the years on Facebook, she reached out to me privately and said, look, I'm not trying to start a fight with you. I'm just asking, is this being filmed? I don't know, should I be standing in this light? Okay, because I can make it work for you. Sorry, it just dawned on me, maybe I'm slightly off camera. If you want me to move, just let me know. She said, look, I'm not trying to start a fight with you, I'm just asking, have you seen this? And she sent me a link to a video that was entitled "Debunking the Trump Mocked the Disabled Reporter." Now, I saw the title of this video and I became instantly enraged. I was just like, oh my God, it's more Fox News brainwashing, more right-wing propaganda. And then I actually got kind of excited. I was like, oh, I can't wait to watch this so I can tell her how stupid she is for falling for it. And so I watched the video, and it was a compilation of footage showing Donald Trump numerous times throughout the years in numerous circumstances doing that exact same voice and that exact same gesture as he had done at his rally when he was accused of mocking a reporter's disability. But the commonality in every instance was he was imitating somebody who was flailing because they were caught in a lie. And it showed very clearly and compellingly that he was not making fun of that reporter's disability. He was making fun of the fact that that reporter, who happened to be disabled, was flailing because he was caught in a lie. And suddenly I was like, a light went on in my head, and I thought, well, oh my God, Donald Trump did not mock that reporter's disability, but why did CNN tell me that he did? And so this kind of created a conundrum for me, and I started reaching out to fellow liberals and co-workers and people in New York City and just saying like, hey, have you seen this video and what do you make of it? And I was instantly met with this wall of hostility and contempt. People were angry at me just for asking this question and saying like, what, are you turning to the dark side now? Why are you supporting Trump? And I said, I'm not supporting Trump, I hate Trump. I'm just trying to understand, because this was very upsetting, this moment, thinking that he did this. But it doesn't seem like he did, so what's going on? But it became clear to me I was not safe having these conversations because I was getting attacked just for asking questions. But it was bothering me, it wouldn't leave me alone, so I started going to work during the day, and I would come home at night, and I got into bed, and I would read and research and watch videos and kind of go back to the beginning of Trump's campaign and all of these key moments, like, did he really call all Mexicans rapists? Did he really advocate for the sexual assault of women? Did he, is the Muslim ban really a Muslim ban? And I started researching all of these moments and watching his speeches in full context. And what I discovered time and time and time again was that in nearly every circumstance, not only was what the media presented not true, but in many circumstances, the opposite was true. And what I really noticed, too, was that if you are a minority in this country, if you're black or brown or LGBT or an immigrant or a woman, the media is not just lying to you. They are telling you every story through this filter that is designed to make you believe that America is a bigoted, oppressive country with a system of oppression from which you cannot break free, you cannot succeed, that the American dream is not there and alive and there for the taking for you, that the entire system is rigged against you, and that the Republican Party is supporting this rigging so that you'll never succeed. And when I discovered that, I became so outraged. And that's what made me motivated to stand up and speak out and do something about it. Because I was already starting to feel like, I don't think I can be a Democrat anymore. I don't think I can be a liberal anymore. I don't think I can continue to believe the BS that the mainstream media is telling me. But I think I would have been content to change my voter registration and leave it alone and be quiet about it, if not for the discovery about how they're manipulating minorities. Because it's more than just manipulating and exploiting people, it's dividing all of us. And when you look at all of the hatred and division that takes place in this country, and the way that we all are at odds with each other, and so many times, it doesn't actually have to be that way. Black and white people don't have to be at odds with each other. Gay and straight people don't have to be at odds with each other. Christians, Jews, Muslims, and various minority community, or various different groups of people religiously don't have to hate one another. But the Democrats can't thrive and succeed unless we do. The Democrats have no party unless they've divided people into these factions and turned them against one another. That's what made me so angry and upset. And so I put out a 6-minute video detailing all of the reasons why I was walking away from liberalism and walking away from the Democratic Party. And I started a Facebook group that I called the #WalkAway Campaign. And I encouraged other people who are out there feeling the same way I was feeling to share their own stories, make their own videos, make a written testimonial, and talk about why you too can no longer abide by the tenets of the left and the Democrats. And the idea exploded out of the gate. Within weeks, Within weeks, I was doing local radio shows, podcast interviews, and this slowly grew. By 5 weeks in, I was doing the Tucker Carlson show, Laura Ingraham, and the movement began to grow and grow. We grew to hundreds of thousands of people within our first year, and thousands of people joined and created their own videos and written testimonials about why they too could no longer support the Democratic Party. And by January 1st of 2019, I realized that we had something so much bigger than just a social media movement. We needed to get on the ground and go out and bring this message to people exactly where they are. And so on January 1st of 2019, I launched the Walkaway Foundation. And we began traveling the country, going into colleges, the Black community, the Hispanic community, traveling all over, doing minority-focused town halls, debates, rallies, marches, and educational videos, letting people know that they too can walk away from the Democratic Party. You don't have to be a Democrat. Stop seeing yourself through the lens of identity politics. Stop the tribal mentality. Stop with the groupthink. You're not a Black American or a gay American. You're an American. We're all Americans, and we all have the same opportunities as one another. We all need to come together and unite. This is our message. This is what we want people. Why do they hate that message? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine hating a message of unity? Can you imagine hating a message of empowerment for more people, more freedom, more opportunity? The left hates that so much, but it tells you so much about the left and what they believe. They hate it. They hate freedom. They hate opportunity for Americans. It's the worst. But because I think more and more people are starting to see the light about what the media is and what the left is, our movement has grown and grown and grown. And by January 6th of 2021, Walkaway had grown to over 511,000 people who had joined our movement. Tens of thousands of videos and written testimonials from people sharing their stories. And because of the success of the Walkaway movement, I was asked to be a scheduled speaker at a permitted event on Capitol grounds on January 6th to stand up for the American voter who believed that something was wrong in the 2020 election and that we wanted a forensic audit. Look, if 83 million people mysteriously came out to vote for Joe Biden, great. I believe that knowledge is power, and especially with my movement, if I got it that wrong, and I was traveling around the country watching all of these Black and Hispanic and all these people walk away, and then suddenly 83 million people decided to mail in their votes for Joe Biden, that's good information. I need to know how I can do better the next time. And all we wanted to do was have this information verified. But the left did everything that they possibly could to prevent us from knowing what the actual outcome of the 2020 election was. They were putting up pizza boxes in the windows so we couldn't see anybody tabulating the votes. They were refusing and fighting in court when we were trying to get a forensic audit of the vote. Anything that they could possibly do. And so I was more than happy to show up on January 6th and lend my voice to a permitted rally on Capitol grounds to stand up for the American voter. And as I was arriving to my permitted event, my speaking engagement, I began getting text messages from friends, family, people all over the country who were saying, we're hearing on television, the news is saying that something is happening at the Capitol and people are going inside the building. And I thought, well, it's right over there. If that's the truth, I've got a very large social media following, and I've got a camera in my pocket. And if something is actually happening, I want to capture it for myself so that I don't believe the media. I don't believe anything that the news says. This is the same news that all throughout 2020 stood there while buildings were burning to the ground from Black Lives Matter and saying, it's mostly peaceful out here, Bob. And I was like, well, if those guys think that's a mostly peaceful demonstration, then I'm really curious what they're freaking out about that's happening at the Capitol. So I began shooting a video and walking up the sidewalk on the east side of the Capitol grounds. Now, in my video, which is about 8 minutes long, there's a few things that are very peculiar that you'll notice. The first, and by the way, this may mean nothing to anyone, but I arrived on the Capitol grounds around 2:40 p.m., which was kind of late. You know, the disturbance that had happened on the west side of the building began somewhere, I think, around 12:30 p.m., between 12:30 and 1:30. I arrived hours after that. And I was also on the opposite side of the building as where the riot had occurred, which was on the west side of the building. So as I'm walking up the sidewalk on the east side of the building, what you'll see in my video is that there are no closed barricades. The sidewalk is fully open. There's bike rack over to the left, or to the right. There's bike rack over to the left, but the sidewalk itself is fully open. The next thing you'll notice is that there's no signs, nothing to indicate that people are not allowed to be on the Capitol grounds, or don't cross this line, or you're trespassing. And I'd say most importantly and most relevant, there were 0 police officers on the east side grounds at the time that I was there. Now, I'm not saying few, I'm not saying a couple, I am saying 0. There wasn't a single police officer on the east side grounds. So I walked up the east side sidewalk and into a crowd of thousands of people that were standing outside of the east side of the Capitol. The next thing you'll notice in my video is that the stairs of the Capitol, the many steps leading up to the Capitol, are completely filled with people. None of them are facing toward the Capitol. They're all facing away from the Capitol with it behind them, holding signs, singing songs. One woman had a karaoke machine and she's singing into her karaoke machine. And I'm starting to think to myself, okay, more fake news, right? This story that I'm getting. But then in my video, you see a man at the top of the steps of the Capitol, cupping his hands over his mouth like this and shouting down, "They've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside." And so I walked up to the steps on the east side of the Capitol, the top of the steps, and sure enough, both of the Columbus doors at the top of the steps were both wide open. There was a crowd of several hundred people at the top of the stairs. Some of them were trying to push their way into the open doors. The majority, like me, were standing there shooting a video. There were, I'd estimate, hundreds of people between myself and the open doors, which were about 35 feet away. And so, since a lot of these people were taller than me, and many of them were holding flags that were hanging down on poles, I'm shooting my video, and I held my camera fully above my head like this, and pointed it down toward the open doors, so that my video camera could capture what my eyes could not see. And I stood outside of the building for about 8 minutes shooting video, when a man came out of the building, got on a bullhorn and shouted, "They've cleared Congress, everyone's left the building, move out, move out." And so I immediately turned around, told the people behind me, they're saying to move out, we need to go this way. Then I walked down the stairs, and I stayed on the outer grounds for about 30 to 40 more minutes, shooting 13 more videos, doing street interviews with people, asking them about their experience, what they saw, etc. I took the first video that I shot, and I uploaded it to Twitter. And I said, well, this is what I saw today at the Capitol. Now, to be clear, in case you missed it, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th, never went inside. I didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction, and perhaps more relevantly, I didn't witness any. I literally never saw a single person break a window, fight with a police officer, create any damage, any destruction, any vandalism on January 6th. What I saw and was a part of, at best, could be described as, or let's say at worst, could be described as a disorderly crowd of people trying to push their way into open doors. And I uploaded that video to Twitter. When I got back to my hotel room a couple of hours later, I turned on my television set, and that's when, for the first time, I started to see the images of what had taken place on the west side of the building. And I became confused, because I thought to myself, okay, did something happen after I left? Did a riot break out? What's going on? And so, in my confusion, I decided to take my video down because I didn't want my followers to think that I was in danger in the middle of some sort of situation that was happening at the Capitol. Never in a million years did I believe that I had done something wrong, that I was involved in something criminal, and I wasn't the least bit afraid that I was in trouble. But I took my video down. However, it had already lived on Twitter for about 2 hours, which was long enough for left-wing trolls to copy it and begin mass reposting it on Twitter and tagging the FBI and tagging the DOJ and telling them that Brandon Straka was a part of the insurrection and that Brandon Straka helped attack the Capitol and that they needed to come in and arrest me and charge me and take me to jail. And this went on for 2.5 weeks. And people kept asking me, are you scared? And I said, no, I'm not super comfortable. I don't like this kind of attention, but I said I didn't break the law, so I don't really have anything to be afraid of. So imagine my surprise, 2.5 weeks after January 6th, on the morning of January 25th, Monday, when a team of FBI agents in tactical gear stormed my apartment at dawn, got me out of bed, put me in handcuffs, and told me that I was facing multiple felony charges for what I had done on January 6th. And the agents came into my apartment and began stripping it of my computers, my phones, my iPads, my hard drives, my thumb drives, camera equipment, clothing, while they cuffed my hands behind my back, marched me through my apartment building, and took me to jail. I spent 2.5 days in jail, sitting in 24-hour lockdown, believing that I was facing charges of treason, terrorism, insurrection, because this is all we'd heard about for 2.5 weeks prior on the news. This, at the time, they were calling it the deadly insurrection. I don't know if you remember when it was the deadly insurrection, because this is when they were talking about multiple police officers being murdered on January 6th. As it turns out, that was never true. No police officers were killed on January 6th. That was a complete and total lie that was created by the left-wing media and perpetuated by the Democrats and the Democrat Party. But it was still being called the deadly insurrection. It was being called an act of terrorism and treason and an attempt to overthrow the United States government. And all I knew was that I was Brandon Strock, the guy who traveled the country for 2.5 years telling everyone to leave the Democratic Party, and that Joe Biden had become president 5 days before my arrest, and the Democrats had taken full control of the federal government. And I thought to myself, I am literally never going to see the outside of a prison cell again. 2.5 days later, I went before a federal judge who said that this is the case of the United States of America versus Brandon Strock, which I can honestly tell you, as scared as I was during those 2.5 days that I was sitting in that jail cell, I never cried. But I did cry when the judge said this was the case of the United States of America versus Brandon Strock. Interestingly, the prosecutor for the government said in a very jovial tone, "Your Honor, we know that Mr. Strock didn't enter the Capitol on January 6th. And we know that Mr. Strock didn't engage in any violence or vandalism or theft or destruction. So, Your Honor, the government is comfortable not seeking detention of Brandon Strock pending his trial." And I thought to myself, okay, if you know all of this, why did you just raid my apartment like you were looking for Osama bin Laden and put me in jail? Like what the hell is going on? When I was released from jail, I had an opportunity to speak with my attorney for the first time. And my attorney said to me, "Well, you're currently facing 2 felony charges and a misdemeanor." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, the first felony is knowingly occupying." I'm starting to get worried about her health. Do we have an EMT? Sure. Yeah. Do you guys have those paddles? I don't think you're fit or healthy enough to put your heart into this condition. If you're gonna get yourself worked up into this state, go jogging first. I'm worried about your health. Please. Okay. So my attorney told me that the first felony charge was knowingly occupying restricted grounds. In other words, trespassing outside of the Capitol on the grounds. And what's interesting is that I was given a felony charge when most people who entered the Capitol were given a misdemeanor of knowingly occupying a restricted building. The second felony charge, he said, was impeding law enforcement. And I said, "Wait a second, what are you talking about? There were no police officers on the East Side grounds." My attorney said to me, "Have you watched your video?" And I said, "No, I've actually never seen it. I filmed it, I uploaded it, I took it down from Twitter, but I've never actually watched it." And he said, "Well, you should watch it." Because he said there's one moment where when you're standing outside of the Capitol, outside of the open doors, that one officer is making his way through the crowd and he's holding a plastic shield. And several guys, this is happening about 25 feet away from me, because remember, I'm filming like this, because I've got people in front of me. And he said, a couple of guys grab his plastic shield out of his hand, and then they pass it around for about 30 seconds, and then they give it back to him. And while that's happening, you could hear a couple of voices in the crowd shouting, take it, take the shield, take the shield. Well, the FBI is saying that's you. That you were shouting, take the shield, and they're charging you with a felony of impeding law enforcement for allegedly shouting these words. Now, no such thing happened. First of all, I didn't even see it. I didn't witness it. My camera captured it. I had no awareness that it happened until I watched my video after I got out of jail. The third charge was a misdemeanor of disorderly conduct with an intent to disrupt a hearing before Congress. But my attorney said to me, I said, well, what do we do? And my attorney said, well, you've got several options. One, you can fight this all the way to the end. He said it's going to cost you at least $250,000 to go to trial. And he said they're not going to release jurisdiction of any of these cases. All of the J6 cases are going to go before a DC judge and a DC jury. And he said these people voted 93% against Donald Trump. I say against Donald Trump because nobody voted for Joe Biden. People only voted against Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump, they hate his supporters, and they're going to be your jury. I said, okay, what's option B? And he said, option B is I asked the prosecutor if they would drop the felony charges if you will plead guilty to a misdemeanor. And I said, okay. And he said, they told me that they were open to doing that. He said, however, I need to let you know that they told us that they have not yet charged you with 1512 obstruction of an official proceeding felony. They said this is a charge that they're giving a number of the J6ers, and the prosecutor said it carries up to 20 years in prison. We haven't given it to Brandon yet, but we might. And so it was very clear to me, if I made the decision to dare to try to defend myself at trial, which was not something I was thinking about doing anyway, they would have added at least one more felony charge, and I would be facing up to 35 years worth of charges in prison before a DC judge or jury, or I could take a misdemeanor charge and all of that goes away. And they told my attorney if he pleads guilty to a misdemeanor, his case will be resolved in 60 to 90 days. My attorney said to me, nobody goes to jail on a first offense misdemeanor. He said, you don't have any prior criminal record, and you just spent 2.5 days in jail. He said, if you plead guilty to a misdemeanor, the judge is likely to give you time served. And he said, within 2 to 3 months, all of this will be behind you. You can get back to work and go back to doing what you do. And I thought to myself, because my attorney had told me, while we're going through the process of working through your case, I don't want you doing any news media, I don't want you doing any social media, no fundraising, no events, I need you to just disappear. I want these people to forget about you. Now, at the time, I thought it sounded like a painful proposition to disappear for 2 or 3 months. I had never done that before. Usually, I'm in front of my social media audience on a daily basis. I'm traveling around the country doing events sometimes multiple times a week. The idea of disappearing for 2 months sounded like torture at the time. Little did I know that would have been child's play compared to what ended up happening. Because I had no idea how corrupt and dirty and devious the criminal justice system is. Because I told my attorney, I'm going to do it. I'm going to plead guilty to a misdemeanor, which made me sick to do, but I had really no alternative. And so we waited the full 89 days of that first 3 months. And on the 89th day, the government came back to us and they said, we need 90 more days. And so we granted it. I said to them, what if we say no? And my attorney said, well, if we say no, they're going to go to a judge, and the judge is going to grant it to them, and all that will be accomplished is that you have not been cooperative, and now they're going to have an axe to grind with you. You might as well tell them that you agree with it. And I said, fine, give them 90 more days. And on the 89th day, they came back to us again and said, we need 90 more days. And they did this 5 times, dragging my case out for over a year. And so for more than a year, I completely disappeared off the grid. Nobody saw from me. Nobody heard from me. Finally, in October of 2021, this would have been 10 months in, while I'm still in exile, I signed my plea agreement. When we received the plea agreement from the government, see, this is again, when I asked my attorney, well, what will I plead guilty to? He said, in all likelihood, they will give you a misdemeanor for trespassing. He said, it's not that big of a deal. And I said, okay, well, I'm a political activist. professionally. I said, what political activist worth his salt doesn't have a misdemeanor for trespassing? Fine. What I didn't know is that when you plead guilty and you take the government's plea deal, you have to also sign what's called their statement of offense, which is essentially the confession that the government writes on your behalf. And you have two options: sign it or don't sign it. If you don't sign it, you go to trial on felony charges. So in my statement of offense, the government said, Mr. Strock entered the Capitol grounds knowing that they were restricted and knowing that he was breaking the law by doing it. And after entering into the restricted area, knowing that he was breaking the law, Mr. Strock climbed to the top of the stairs and saw the open doors of the Capitol and shouted, "Go, go, go," to encourage the mob to storm the building. And while he did that, he witnessed the crowd ripping a shield away from a police officer and shouted, take it," to encourage the crowd to take the shield away from the officer. I said to my attorney, I cannot say that I did this. I did not do this. My attorney went back, complained to the prosecutor, and said he doesn't want to sign this. And the response that we got from the government was, if he doesn't like it, he's welcome to go to trial. And so I signed that plea agreement, and I went into a depression so deep for about 2 weeks that I really honestly didn't even want to continue to live. But I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. Because again, what normal person could ever be able to predict the absolute vile and evil tactics that these people have mastered after decades of weaponizing the justice system against people? What I didn't know is that when I signed that plea deal and I said the words take it," to encourage the crowd to take a shield, that I would then receive a knock on my door days later and somebody hand me a stack of papers this thick telling me that I am being sued by a Soros-funded nonprofit law firm out of Washington, D.C., who is representing 8 black and brown police officers suing me under the KKK Act, alleging that I am a white supremacist who went to the Capitol on January 6th to encourage people to attack black and brown police officers and to deprive them of their civil rights. Now, the officer who had his shield taken wasn't even a black guy, he was a white guy. But these 8 Capitol police officers that this Soros-funded nonprofit found agreed to put their names on the lawsuit. And this case went on for 2.5 years and cost me $150,000 to get through before I was finally dismissed fully from the case. But through the process of going through the case and being able to depose these police officers, we learned incredibly interesting things. Like one of them was in Maryland on January 6th. None of them were even working on the same side of the building that I was on. But this is how dishonest and duplicitous the narrative of January 6th is. Look at these idiots over here screaming about the police officers. Oh, the poor police officers. These police officers, not all of them, but a good number of them are liars and pawns. And I mean, many of them participated and instigated the violence that took place on January 6th, like shooting flashbangs into a crowd of people that were not being violent, that were not being aggressive, but they stirred a lot of people up into a frenzy. Nonetheless, I was sued, and then I was deposed by the January 6th committee. So I got what I call the trifecta. I was criminally charged, I was civilly sued, and I was made to testify for the January 6th committee. Let's go back just a moment. When I got out of jail, within the next 2 weeks after getting out of jail, I was evicted from my apartment. I was permanently banned by PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, Patreon, donor portals, email services, and not just me, but my organization, Walkaway. The Walkaway campaign got banned by Facebook on January 8th of 2021. More than 511,000 people our community had grown to, tens of thousands of videos and written testimonials, all gone in an instant. And the destruction and decimation, every J6er got put on a terrorism watch list. We all got a designation of Quad S, meaning we couldn't get on an airplane without going through hours of screening at the airport and then being forced to fly with armed air marshals. I mean, on misdemeanor trespassing charges for the majority of people. This was a complete and total weaponization of every agency in our government against supporters of Donald Trump and against Donald Trump himself, because the entire purpose of the narrative of January 6th was to try to create a story about insurrection so that they could invoke a constitutional amendment to try to prevent Donald Trump from running for president again, which ultimately failed. Not only did they not prevent Donald Trump from running for president again, but Donald Trump got elected president again! And for the next 4 long, glorious years, Donald Trump is your president, and your president, and your president, but most importantly, he's your president! Donald Trump is your commander-in-chief and your supreme leader for the next 4 years. And what a glorious era this is going to be for America. So I ultimately pled guilty to a misdemeanor, and I was sentenced to 3 months of house arrest, 3 years of federal probation, fines, fees, community service, you name it. But in the end, America triumphed, and Donald Trump was reelected. And on January 20th of 2025, I was fully and unconditionally pardoned by the President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you. And so, I don't want to make it seem like this has not been a brutal experience. This has been an absolutely brutal experience in every conceivable way. It has been expensive. It has been costly financially. It's been costly to my psyche, to my spirit, to my emotions, to my family, to everything that you can imagine, and not to mention my organization. But I never stopped fighting. I never quit. And as I said before, we've gotten the Nebraska Attorney General involved. I think it is highly likely that Facebook is going to be forced to reinstate the walkaway campaign and financially settle with me for all of the damage that they did. And myself and every other person who was subjected to the weaponized horrors of January 6th will be suing the United States government and demanding justice for what was done to all of us. And so, I'll close out tonight by saying the following things. Number 1, Walkaway is never going to quit. No matter what they do to us, we're never going to quit. And there's 2 philosophies that I'm asking people to embrace from this point forward. 1, that every year is an election year. I'll explain that in a moment. And 2, that every election is a national election. Here's what I mean by these things. We learned a very hard lesson in 2020 that it matters who the governors are in every state, because with a stroke of a pen, a few Democrat governors in a few blue states managed to change their election laws, which swayed the outcome of the 2020 election for all of us nationally, and they managed to oust Donald Trump. So it does matter to all of us who the governors are in every state, who the state legislators are in every state, who the Supreme Courts are in every state. New Jersey and Virginia have key governors races in 2025. That's this year. Now, New Jersey and Virginia are this close to flipping red. A 5-point margin prevented Donald Trump from taking those 2 states, when in the past he lost by like 20 points. So we're this close to getting Virginia and New Jersey to flip red. I am going into New Jersey, and sorry, I'm starting to freeze. I am going into New Jersey and Virginia in 2025. We are going to reach as many Black and Hispanic and LGBT and Muslims and Indians and Asians and get them thinking for themselves and walking away from the Democratic Party. And then we're going to be going into Ohio in 2026. I'm not going to tell you who I'm supporting because there may be mixed company here, but exciting governor's race that you guys have coming up, not to mention the midterm elections. So we must get involved every year. We can't just get involved every 2 years or every 4 years for a few weeks before the election and then pull out and disappear and then go, wait a minute, why did we lose? You know, we worked really hard for 3 weeks before the election, because it never ends. Look at these idiots. The left never quits. They never stop. We can't stop either. And I'll tell you something else. In June of 2024, Donald Trump narrowly escaped being assassinated. He came within millimeters of being killed. And it is the most improbable fact that he did not die on that day. 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds that he was not killed. And I looked at that and I said to myself, if Donald Trump doesn't get reelected, I will never understand why he survived being killed on that day. I'll never, because you know what? Those people will put him in prison, and he will die in prison if he doesn't win the election. No question about it. So how is it that he could possibly have survived such an improbable assassination attempt if he ends up losing the election and going to prison? But he didn't lose the election, and he didn't go to prison. He won, and I have to believe that that means that we are being given a gift, and we are being given a second chance to save America. And the worst thing you can ever do, I don't care if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, but if you do believe in God, and this is a strong thing to say, I think we're spitting in his face if we sit back and allow ourselves to not avail ourselves of the second chance that we're being given to save America. That means we need to fight every single day to make sure that we never again have a 4 years like we just had. The 4 years under Joe Biden are the closest I ever want this country to come to authoritarian government rule. I never want to get that close again to authoritarianism in this country. I lived it firsthand. I experienced it. Many other people did too. I never want it to happen again. So let's fight every single day to make sure that no Democrats ever take control of this country ever again. And with that, I will say, does everybody have a walkaway sign? Yeah. All right, I want to ask you guys for a favor. But it's a very easy favor. Don't worry. I feel like there's one more thing I want to say, and then I'll tell you what the favor is. So when you leave here tonight, a lot of you might drive home, think about what I said. You might feel upset. You might feel disturbed. You might feel sad. You might feel angry. And that's fine. I think everyone's entitled to feel that way because the story is upsetting and it's horrible and it's terrible. But if there's one thing I want you to take away from my story more than anything else, it is that you can go through something like what I just went through and pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get the hell back out on the battlefield because America's worth fighting for. That's what I want you to take away from my story. And now, here's what I would like. So when I travel around and I talk to different groups, I love to get everyone together holding a walkway sign. I'm going to encourage everyone to stand up and gather closely together, and then we're going to chant walkaway, and I'll tell you how to do it. And here's how this is going to work. All right, so don't do it right now because I'm going to explain it to you. So what it's going to sound like is the chant is going to go like this. It's going to go, walk away, walk away, walk away. Okay, now while you're doing that, I'm going to pan my camera this way, and you're going to keep going. And then I'm going to pan my camera back, and you're going to keep going. And then when I'm done doing that, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go like this. And that means you just go, woo! You know, just like kind of freak out a little bit, okay? So, you guys look like a smart group. I think you're going to get it right on the first try. But, so, walk away, 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 walk away. That was perfect. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming out.
All right, folks, so Brandon has agreed, and I know we've got Cold ensuing here. He's agreed to take a couple questions. I'm standing right here in the center. If you've got a question for Brandon...
Let me just grab my coat. I'm just going to grab my coat.
Go ahead.
But I'm happy to do questions.
Yep. Brandon's going to go and warm up. I'm standing right in the center. If you have a question, you know our rules, right? Only questions, no statements. And I'm killing time. By the way, one of the things, Brandon, I thought that was amazing you said the emotional toll that this took on you Well, what I can say is that our friends in the back here clearly had an emotional toll that took on them and what you did and what the president's done. So thank the Lord for that.
But I think theirs is more permanent than mine. I'll recover.
And I think what was amazing is they said something about being crazy, and I just sort of laughed. All right, I'm with the microphone, so I get to ask the first question. Brandon, are you able to share with us the name of the AUSA, the Assistant U.S. Attorney that decided that they had the absolute ability to do this under the law?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, and I should have said this before, one of the greatest parts about being pardoned is, my judge had actually sentenced me to a probation sentence intentionally that ended 3 days after the 2025 inauguration. She wanted to make sure that I didn't try to insurrect again when Joe Biden got elected president, which is what she was counting on happening. Little, did she know Kamala would take over? But So I ended up getting a 3-day reprieve from my probation because I got pardoned 3 days before the end of that. So one of the greatest things about my pardon is that it allows me to say definitively that my plea deal was a lie. I signed a false statement that was written by the United States government. I never would have been able to say that if I wasn't pardoned. And I also wouldn't be able to seek retribution against the people who did this to me, starting by naming their names, but I can do that now. Thank you, President Trump. So the main actors who instigated all of this against me was an FBI agent named Jeremy Desor. Jeremy Desor is the one who created the fake story about me seeing the shield being taken and shouting, "Take it, take it, take the shield." That was created by Agent Jeremy Desor, who I've already been in contact with people in the government to make sure that Mr. Desor does not stay with our FBI much longer. Even if he still is. And the ASUAs who did this, two of them were prosecutor April Russo and prosecutor Brittany Reed. And perhaps most egregiously of all was my judge, Judge Dabney Friedrich, who I, like so many other J6ers, when we thought that we had the opportunity to get in front of a judge, we believed that fairness might come into the picture and a reasonable person might hear what was happening and say, this is not okay. For every one of us, we discovered that our lives were about to get much, much worse the first time we went before our judges. All of these federal judges need to be removed from their benches. It's unlikely to happen because they can really only be removed through what's it called again? Impeachment. Thank you. Which is very, very unlikely. But those are the names of the people who did this to me.
Well, great, thank you. All right, we are going to take just a few questions, and then we're going to head out to the local bar after this. So if you want to, right here, stand right over by me here and take it. First question will be with Tom.
Could you comment on that Ashley Babbitt case? Do you think that the policeman that shot her will ever be prosecuted?
I know that Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch has filed a civil case against the government on behalf of Ashley Babbitt's family, which it sounds like, from my understanding, the government is going to be settling with Ashley Babbitt's family as they should. I have no knowledge whatsoever from a criminal standpoint of what might happen to the police officer who shot her and killed her, but the statute of limitations on murder never expires. So who knows what could happen over the next 4 years.
Yeah, is your pardon signed by Donald Trump? And 2, is it framed and hanging on your wall?
Okay. So I actually don't have a physical copy of my pardon. I have. There's an email address that they say you should reach out to if you want it. I've contacted them twice.
Should we start a petition?
I'm sure they're very busy. Yeah, I'm sure they're very busy, and I do believe I will get it. And yes, when I do get it, I will absolutely frame it and put it on my wall. But I do want to answer a question that you didn't ask, but I get it a lot. People ask me all the time, how do you find out you get pardoned? How does it happen? And my answer is, you find out you get pardoned by watching the news. Because on Inauguration Day, I was glued to my TV waiting for President Trump to say, this is who I'm pardoning, this is whatever. The whole damn day went by, nothing was said. And then finally he went to the arena and said, I'm heading back to the Oval Office tonight. We're going to sign some executive orders, and we're going to do something for the J6ers. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm sitting there watching, and it gets to be, I don't know, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden a banner goes across the screen that says, Donald Trump pardons the J6ers. And I see all of these J6ers going on X and social media being like, I just got pardoned, I just found out I got pardoned. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm pardoned or not. And I'm much too cautious. Like, how embarrassing would it be to go on social media and say you got pardoned, and then the next day to be like, oh, I actually didn't, never mind. So I kept my mouth shut until my attorney called about an hour later. He's like, I read the whole executive order, you're pardoned. And I was like, ah! And then I went on social media.
Any other questions?
Yeah. All right. Yes. Yes.
The question was, does he still have the video that he took that day, and is it available anywhere?
Yes, I do. And so what I'm going to be doing, and I'd say probably within the next week or two, is I've kind of created like a 10-15 minute video that tells all the truth and lies about my January 6th case, and it's going to weave in that footage to show how I couldn't possibly have known or seen the incident with the shield or had anything to do with it. And I did a couple of other things too, and I know for some people it's probably overkill, but I probably, like, if you were falsely accused, you never get over having people believe that you did something that you didn't do, even if it's relatively minor. And so 2 other things that I did was I voluntarily paid for and submitted to do a polygraph test, which I did on camera. And the polygraph administrator asked me questions like, did you witness the crowd take a shield? Did you shout for the crowd to take a shield? Did you encourage people to enter the Capitol? And I filmed the entire thing and filmed myself getting the results, and I passed the polygraph test, so I'm going to be putting that out. And I also hired a forensic audio expert to watch my video and analyze it, and she said, this isn't your voice. You didn't do the thing about the shield. So I'm going to be putting all of that out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, one last question, and then we're going to go warm up at the local bar.
Yeah, is there like any sort of way that you could like retrieve a lot of these people's videos on there, or is it just completely like demolished off of the thing?
Currently, yes.
Because you want to know something, a lot of people put their heartfelt things, and
no,
it was
devastating.
terrible.
It's devastating.
I'm a walk with.
Awesome. Thank you for your support of the movement. Thank you for that. So the answer to your question is currently yes. It does not exist, and we only saved a small fraction of the videos that we had from Facebook. But I really believe there's a strong possibility the group will be reinstated through the help of the Attorney General, and if that's the case, we should get all of the videos back and all the content back. Let's wait and see I don't want to get excited until, but it's looking very positive. I'll say that. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love for Paul to recollect the signs because we're going to take them to the next place and use them again. Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming out tonight to hear me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for enjoying these dumbasses over here.
Thank you, everyone. Let's give a round of applause to Brandon Straka.
Thank you, Strongsville.
Great. And then if you aren't familiar with it, we're going to be going to the local bar, which is on Pearl Road, 14571 Pearl Road, which is 3 minutes down Pearl Road on the left-hand side, just past McDonald's. Look forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
Did Paul get abducted by the protesters? Paul, oh, there he is. Okay, all right.